welcome to Intersound. We've got a special guest, Mr. Steve Smith, who started Intersound Guitars back in 1998, and we thought we'd get Steve down just to talk about the history of Intersound and how it started, like the first 6 months before the shop started, and then the first year of his ownership and the things that have changed over the years. But yeah, we just wanted to talk to you about the origins, the genesis of Intersound. So Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Dan and Jake. Nice to see you both. I'm so pleased you've taken on the shop as well. I think you're doing a fantastic job, you two.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, let's go back. We're going back 27 years, and we go back to around about March, April of 1998, which is when the idea first came about of having the shop. I was working for a large multinational corporation as an engineer, and due to circumstances, I was offered a package to leave, and I decided to take that package. And I'd always wanted to be in the music industry. Ever since I was a kid, 14, 15 years old, I wanted to be a musician like we all do. And I'm of the generation where you say, go and get a proper job, son. Music isn't a proper job. So I did all the things. I went to, I did an apprenticeship in electrical engineering, and I did a HNC at university and so on. So I followed the dreams of other people, effectively. So here we are in 1998, coming to the end of what I believe to be an engineering career. I got to the point where I didn't want to be in engineering anymore. It was just not for me. And I'd had this idea, and I put it to my wife Judith, that we'd start a little music shop in Dursley. There was nothing here that was in any sort of competition, and the shop that we're in now was formerly a flower shop, and the lease was coming up for sale. So I made a bid for it, and we were successful. And that was around about the summer of 98 when we did the bid and so on. And it took all the way until around about this time, about sort of September, October time, before we could take the building on. And when we came in, it was a mess. I mean, there was wires hanging from the ceiling. The floor at the back of the shop was in a mess where they used to water the flowers, and it was like a paddling pool in there. So the place was a bit of a mess when we first came here. And so that was the first part of the experience of being a shop owner, was coming into an absolute mess, a paddling pool, and not knowing which direction we were going to go. But we had to make a decision on where we were going to go from that, because we just thought we'd come in, have a nice shop, put all the goods in it, and start up.
So, yeah.
It wasn't quite as easy as that. So it was a thought process where you really had to start looking at the building as a whole, what the building would lend itself to be. But I always knew that I wanted a guitar shop, but I also at the same time realised that opening the guitar shop, it wouldn't survive. It had to be a general music shop. Yeah. You had to get a broad span of people to know about it and come and use it in order to eventually become a specialist shop, which is always the plan that I had from the very beginning.
So at this point, how old are you?
Well, I would be 41 at this point.
Okay. And Jake?
41 years old.
98.
Yeah.
I'd be -2.
-2. Okay.
Okay.
Are we keeping it running?
Yeah. That sort of puts it into perspective. Yeah. So, So, 41 years old. I'd had enough of engineering. We got the lease. We got the shop, and then it was what do we do now? And my wife, Judith, and I, who sat down. And at the time, we were going to employ my nephew Jeff to help run the shop, because it's called Intersound. And do you know why it's called Intersound? Just as an aside.
I do, but I'm gonna Jake.
Do you know what's called Intersound?
Cafe, right?
It was my wife Judith's idea, really. That one of the things that was big at the time was internet cafes. There wasn't anything in Dursley, nowhere near this area. And nobody had home computers then.
Yeah.
This is before home computers were even thought about as being a general thing in every home.
That was quite
Let alone a phone in your hand that can do everything.
It's like a new thing. The internet cafe was kind of a new thing as
Absolutely.
well.
The internet cafe was a brand new thing, and it really did help establish the shop to a broader audience. And that broader audience was quite unique in some ways. Not only did you get the general public coming in because it was a curiosity, and they wanted to know what the internet was about. So they used to come and book an hour, half an hour, whatever. And at that time, we used to charge about £5 for an hour on the internet, which was the going rate for other internet cafes around the country at that time. And we did have what was then one of the faster speed, what is now the broadband. It was HDMI in those days. It was a different type of system, and we were one of the few places that had that. So it was 10 times faster than the dial-up that you got from if people did have a home computer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we found was Sussex University had people here. They were studying the badgers in Ewley before the badger cull, studying the link between bovine tuberculosis and badgers and the spread of it. And they had a dial-up at home, or the digs they had at Ewley, and it would take the best part of a day to load the data. So they would sit there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for this data to shove down to the university. So they came here, and it would be done in 10, 15 minutes. That would take 6 or 7 hours at the digs. So we had a contract with them. Every particular student that came, because there's a turnover of students, they had a credit card, basically, or a credit system, not a credit card, but a credit system. And I used to just invoice the university for every hour that they used, depending on which student it was. And they would sometimes be here the whole day. So the internet really provided a good source of income. And then we got one of the local schools that used to come in the evening and use it as well. So we had quite a few people interested for curiosity reasons, and interest from establishments like schools and universities for practical reasons, because they wanted to download data, not just play on games. Although the games that we had on the computers were far faster than the ones you could play at home. So that was one of the innovations of the shop, really. So it was called Inter, as in internet, and sound because of the music. So we were called Intersound.
Well done, Judith.
Yeah, and we didn't know at the time, of course, there was another Intersound in Leicester, spelled INTA, but we didn't know about them at the time. So we thought we were a unique shop, but we were able to register it as a limited company, Intersound Music Limited. But that was after 3 years of setting it all up, and it was as a sole trader originally.
They're like our evil twin. Fun fact, at Intersound in Leicester, there is a Danny that works there as well.
Or a Dan,
or a Daniel.
Yeah, well, so, they obviously got good taste.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So those were the things that happened. But we placed our very, very first order with a guy called Paul Newton. And now Paul was the rep for John Hornby Skews, JHS. They took the very first order, and Paul came to my house, and that would have been in the September of 98, and placed the first order, which arrived in the October. We were due to open on the 1st of November. Unfortunately, because the shop was behind, because we had to put new ceilings in, new walls in some places new flooring in as well. We were a week behind the schedule that we placed on ourselves, but it did work to our advantage ultimately, because just a few days before opening, on the Wednesday evening of opening before the Saturday of the 7th, we had the mayor and several other shop owners in here, and we had a pre-opening.
Oh, nice.
And we donated all the money that we made on that night to a local charity, which was at the time renovating the town hall, which we then supported that through a period of time by donating some money from everything that was made on that first night, which was open just a few days before. So yeah, it was it was beneficial because that wouldn't have happened if we'd have opened on time, because we wouldn't have had time to organise it. That few days allowed us to make some phone calls, contact people, and get general interest. So it was an interesting time.
Can I ask, why did you pick Dursley?
Good question. We looked at 3 different locations to open the business. The preferred location, to be honest, because of footfall, because of the busyness of the town, was Thornbury.
Okay.
But there wasn't a single shop available, not one.
Right.
There was a small unit available outside the town, but didn't get the footfall, so it was not worth having. The other place we looked at was Tewkesbury, and there was a shop available. Obviously there was a music shop there already. We would have been accepted with open arms. We were even given incentives by the local authority with a rate holiday, etc., to move there.
Okay, right. Tempting.
It was very tempting, and also the rates and the rent were very, very good indeed. But it was the commute. It was 50 miles a day commuting. Either that or move to Tewkesbury, which we didn't want to do.
You already lived at Dursley at the time?
We were in Cam at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, we were living in Cam at the time, Judith and I. We'd moved up here in 1984, so we'd established ourselves in the Cam and Dursley area, and we liked the area. We saw this place was available as well, so we looked at it and we made a bid on the lease, and that bid was accepted. I think there was a little bit of niggle with the previous occupant, sadly. It didn't go smoothly, hence the reason we had all the problems with the wiring and so on, and the wet floors, etc. But
and the missing doors.
And the missing doors as well, yeah. Yeah, they'd actually taken some of the doors away, which they did put back under duress. But the overall thing was that the building felt right. We had to do a lot to it. We had to put new carpets, new ceilings. We had to put new fittings all around. We had to put a new wall in, which is just behind us. That wasn't there. So there was an awful lot to do in that short period of time, because remember, we only got the keys around about September, and we were going to be open on the 1st of November, which was subsequently put back. So we had some help from a lot of friends, just coming in, helping to rip everything up, put stuff into skips, taking it away, etc. So we had a lot of help from friends of the family, friends of friends, and so on. And it was exciting. It was frenetic. We were just going bonkers. We were here till at times 2 o'clock in the morning, cleaning up, and then going home, sleep, and then coming back at sort of 9 o'clock and doing it all again. And on the night of opening, on the Friday the 6th of November, I think we were here till 3 o'clock, putting the last bits in place, waiting for 9 o'clock to open.
Can I ask about 2 things? The first day, which probably went by in a flash, I imagine. You probably can't remember too much of it, but the first day and then the first week.
The first day was interesting. We had a lot of people come in out of curiosity, but we didn't sell a great deal. It was people were weighing up, who is this new shop? What is this new shop? Looking around. And at the time, we had a great big centrepiece which had lots of ethnic instruments like dabukas and the little thumb pianos, and
Kalimbas.
yes, yeah.
Didgeridoos, things like that.
Yeah, didgeridoos. We had a lot of ethnic instruments on a big display. We had guitars as well. We had some drums, and we had some keyboards. It was a general mums and dads music shop. We also had a few books as well. Over a period of time, we realised what was starting to sell and what wasn't selling. And that first week probably started to cement in our minds exactly what really was going to work. One of the instant successes was the internet cafe.
Yeah.
That was the big curio. that's what people really, really were interested in at first. And then we started to get, after a few months, the musicians started coming in from the schools and say, oh, have you got this book? Have you got that book? And of course, we then built up an archive of what people wanted. So as the shop developed, and this would have been over the first year or so, remembering as well we had CDs, we had tapes, we had vinyl for sale as well.
Wow.
So we had lots of things going on. We were a general music shop, and that's what we wanted to do. And we had to do that. And Jeff, my nephew, who was working for me at the time, the first year, he was very good on computers, so he helped to set the computer system up. But his thing was he liked doing the albums and things, because he didn't play an instrument, but he liked music, and so he was good with sorting out the albums, getting the tapes and discs, and so on. And we used to have the reps coming in, and we used to go to a local company in Wotton under Edge and pick discs up from them. So we had a local network of suppliers, and so we tried to keep as much as we could local. Obviously, some things we couldn't. Even the ethnic instruments came from probably 20 miles away, from a wholesaler 20 miles away. Right, so we tried to, and we used to literally drive over there in the estate car and say, well, we'll have that one, that one, that one. Oh, yeah, we'll have that. Invoice us for that, take it away, and we'd bring it back, display it. And we did get a good response in the first year. But like all businesses, the first year wasn't a financial success, but it was within the budget of loss that we'd predicted when we did our banking forecast for the business. So the first year we did make a loss. The second year we made £100 loss. Second year, the third year we made £100 profit, and from that third year on, we never ever went into debt again. It always made a profit from that point onwards. So for the first 3 years, it was basically a loss, break even, profit. And it was small steps, baby steps, but I was going through a huge learning curve, never done retail before. I'd been in business, so I understood business, but retail was a different thing to engineering business and contracting. But I learned fast, and I applied the principles of business to retail, and it worked. So I was able to do that, which is why I think it worked out over, I think it was probably a period of 5 years, that it became really well established. And it was on coming into the third, fourth year, Judith and I both decided it was time to become a limited company, because it gives you certain protections, obviously, as a limited company rather than a sole trader. And so in 2003, 2004, 2003 I think it was, we became a limited company, which is the company now that you guys are running.
Right. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. One is the original suppliers. Out of the original suppliers that you dealt with, you said the first one was JHS.
Yeah.
Out of them, which others did you deal with at the time?
Barnes and Mullins, of course.
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah, so they're still them.
Yeah.
The other one was Arbiter, who were the Fender dealer, but they've gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
We also dealt with Bentley pianos that was in Stroud, but they've gone now as well. We used to have pianos in here.
Right.
They were on sale or return. They were great because they would bring two pianos in, and you know, there'd be a couple of £1,000. We sold a couple, but not very many. But they went bust as well. Sadly, they ceased trading, so we didn't do the pianos anymore. A lot of the companies that we started off with have gone, but I'd say Barnes and Mullins and JHS are the two staples, and also Rotorsound were not long after one of the originals. We started dealing with them.
Who were your first string suppliers?
So Strings and Things, which is another one.
Okay.
They were in where we used to get all our Ernie Ball things from. And then when we wanted some diversification from just having Ernie Ball, we went across to Rotorsound, and they were probably here from within the first few years of us starting. So they were there more or less at the beginning.
Not much has changed.
No.
We do Rotorsound, we do Elixir, we do Ernie Ball,
Yeah.
My other question was, very likeable and personal person. You said that you were working in engineering first, and you said it was a bit of a learning curve to go into retail. Obviously, in retail, you have to be quite forthcoming. You can't be sort of shy. Did you already have those skills before, or did you become sort of more personable because you were chatting with people every day? And
my role within engineering was designing control systems for elaborate buildings, things like hospitals and clean rooms and so on, where you would put an engineering concept together. You would then go to a consulting engineer and you would put that project in front of the engineer, and you would talk to the engineers and say, this is the solutions I've come up with. They've designed a building, and then they wanted me, or the company I worked for, to design a solution to the building that they'd got. So they wanted somebody that could say, right, this is the control system we need to control this part of the building. And this was in the early days of computers as well. So the very first steps of building management systems I was involved in right back then, when they used PLCs now rather than computer systems. They used programmable logic controllers. Right. So I was doing that. So you had to be able to communicate with people on an engineering level and on a personal level as well, because when the project was being discussed at the engineering level, you could use the engineering language that you were familiar with and what they would be familiar with. When you went to site and you were dealing with people that hadn't got access to the same information that you had to put it in terms that they, within the structure that they had, you had to say, right, we need to put this sensor in this position. Whereas if you were talking to an engineer, you would say, we'll put this intrinsic sensor in position A52 in building B1. And because they designed that building, so they knew all the technicalities, right. And so you would say to the guys on site, we need this type of sensor in that location there, guys, because it's going to be doing this kind of job. And it wasn't being condescending. It was just that they hadn't got the information at their end that I'd been privileged to, and the engineers, the consultants, have been privileged to, because they hadn't got the same set of drawings that I'd been looking at for the past probably 18 months with a consultant. So getting it onto site, you had to not the word isn't come down to their level. It's arriving at the level that they want to understand, because they don't want to go into all the technical jargon. No. So you had to be personable on that point of view, to be able to go into to the guys that were working on site. Some of them would be subcontractors, and some of them would be labourers that hadn't been working on the site for very long. So you had to convey the information at a level that would not be a mistake, and it had to be in the right place at the right time. So you really did have to have a communication skill. And that applies equally to anybody that comes into the shop, whether it's a rep selling you some kit, whether it's somebody coming in for the very first time and never picked up a guitar, or a professional musician that knows what he wants. So you've got to be able to pitch it at those different levels in the same way I pitched it for engineering. So I applied the same principles with different sets of knowledge.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
How long was the business running before you either realised or decided that you sort of wanted to pivot into guitars? Did you have that as a...
It was always going to be a guitar shop.
Yeah.
But when I did my business plan, I had to be realistic in what it would do. Knowing that if you say this is a new guitar shop, not enough guitarists would know about it. But if you had a general music shop, the mums, the dads, the teachers from the local schools, they will all send pupils in, and then you then started looking at the local guitar teachers that were around, contacting them, encouraging them to come in with their students. And it could be a piano teacher, it could be a clarinet teacher, a saxophone teacher, it could be a guitar teacher, but they want different books, they want different things, they want reeds, they want strings. They want all different things. So you had to go through that learning process with them and be able to supply what they wanted as a general music shop. Right. Building that up, because that was happening, then the information would filter then beyond them and to other people. So what happened was, the first thing that went was the ethnic instruments and the display that they had. That went. The next thing that went was the keyboards. And that was a business decision, because keyboards suddenly dropped out of favour in the first few years of being here, simply because they went onto the internet. The internet was a new thing, and they were being trashed, absolutely trashed. So we dropped those, and because we dropped those, the money that was allocated to keyboards and the ethnic instruments went into more guitars. And then the drums. No, we were very successful with drums for quite a long time, but the problem with drums, they take up such a lot of space for a very small return by comparison to a guitar on the wall, to one drum kit in a big space. So there were a few specialist drum shops around in Bristol and Gloucester. So we started to pare that down as well, and the money allocated to the percussion went into guitars, and I slowly built up the guitar side of it, along with Colin, Colin Diamond, that joined me pretty well within the first 5 years or so. And Colin was from Cornwall originally, and he knew of Brook guitars, and I didn't know about them at all. And he said, I think we ought to stock this range of guitars. So we went down and we talked to the guys, and that was the start of the building up the acoustic specialist side. We also tried to build up the electric specialist side with one or two specialist guitars, like JJ guitars, which didn't seem to work. We never were quite as successful with the electric guitars as with the acoustic guitars. That could all be switching around there, because remember that back in the 90s through to the 2010s, the big acts were going towards the acoustics. You've got Mumford & Sons, you've got Ed Sheeran, you've got all these acoustic players coming through at that time. It was the burgeoning thing. So acoustics were in the spotlight. You could argue that the
folk
and the gypsy jazz thing was getting very big at that time as well. So we had the gypsy jazz guitars. So we did focus somewhat on the acoustics. We did have some really nice specialist electrics, but I think if you look at the start of the 2000s to 2010, you could see the waning of bands and the rise of the single artists like the Ed Sheerans and so on. So it seemed that the electric guitar was on a little bit of a dip. I think it's probably on the way up again now, because there are new people coming around that you see that the electric guitar is back on the rise, and bands seem to be back on the rise again. So I was asked quite some time ago, what was the last proper electric guitar band? And you think, well, was it Dire Straits, or was it this? Was it? And it turns out to be McFly. Yeah, they're really good musicians. So McFly, but they're in their 40s now. And so they were the last big guitar band that this country has sort of supported and got behind. It's not the Dire Straits, and it's and Led Zeppelin, because they were the last century. So, but I do see now. I mean, I've come across a band called the Big Push with Ren and so on, and they seem now they're about to release an album. So that perhaps is the start of the electric band coming back again. So it'd be great to see that.
If I can take your mind back to that first year and what happened in that first year, we've touched on it a little bit, but was it scary the first year? Was it? Oh yeah, was it fits and starts? Was it? Once the people were coming in and they were curious, did they tell their friends, and then they told their friends, and then there's a new guitar shop open?
Exactly
did you
that.
Do any,
I mean, there were so many people that were sceptical that this wouldn't last. And there's one person that will tell you that, who's very, very well, who worked here for many, many years and only just recently retired. But he comes in nearly every week and has a chat to you. But yeah, he was sceptical and he was amazed. But he ended up coming in and working for me. And I think it's because we'd seen so many music shops around the country start up and fail within the first 2 or 3 years.
Right.
And I think my advantage was the business background that I had, applying the business techniques to a retail business that I'd applied within the companies that I'd owned previously as an engineer. Because before working for the multinational company, American-based company, I'd had 2 businesses before that which I'd worked for and sold, and I'd worked for. I started a company called Keytron Controls and sold that to Cofreth, the French company, and then I worked for a company called IEC as a director. And I was poached from that company to go and work for the American company because they offered me a deal I couldn't understand. So yeah, they made me an offer I couldn't understand, and it was a ridiculous salary. So I took it, and it was a bittersweet pill because it was probably the most difficult 2 years of my engineering life. But without it, this wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But that first year. We did a reasonable turnover, but with very little profit, because
How was your Christmas? How was it? Because you opened in November. That's right on the run up to Christmas.
Okay, the Christmas was not bad actually. The Christmas was quite good, but, and here's the but, people didn't know what we had because it was only 2 months old. So what we did sell was lots of books, and we sold lots of CDs, and we sold loads of tapes and vinyl and so on that we had at the time. So that was the kicker. But we did sell some guitar packs, because we bought, those were the things that, because in November, one of the first things we were advised to do by John Hornby Skews was buy the little Encore guitar packs, and they sold well. So that was the learning curve. It was learning what to buy seasonally. In those days, it's all changed now because of the internet. But in those days, you bought seasonally, and you would find that November and December were good. Strangely, January would be good because people had their Christmas boxes and it was often money. Then they would come and spend it, and if they were musos. So we had that. Then it would tail off in the spring, and then it would pick up again in the summer. The acoustics would sell in the summer for obvious reasons, and it used to be the cheap Spanish guitars that would sell because people would take them on the beach. And that was that was how they were sold. That was that carefree hippie style thing of that era. But we're talking 25 years ago, 20 odd years ago now. So it's a different world. But the overriding thing was that the first year was an absolute struggle, and the figures were abysmal in terms of profit and loss.
Right.
But it was within the structure of the business model that I'd set to the banks, telling them what my expected turnover would be. I actually exceeded the expected turnover in the first year, but I underestimated the profit margin slightly, not by much, only a few percent, and that was because I didn't take into account things like the charges on the bank, which were, although I'd factored a figure in, the figure wasn't high enough. It was far too low. And so those were different days because you didn't have credit cards then. If you did, it was the ka-dunk ones with the paper, and then you had to take it down to the bank. So people didn't live on the same kind of credit they do now, which is instant. It was negotiated credit with their bank and so on. So a lot of people brought cash, and we used to put lots and lots of cash into the bank. Virtually, there were times when you had to go to the bank every day because the till was stuffed full of cash. Because everybody used cash and not many people used credit cards. That was the issue. But as we sort of progressed, the bank manager that we had, the sitting bank manager in Dursley, she was brilliant. She ended up being one of the top people in HSBC in in the Far East. She was a brilliant bank manager, and she supported the shop very well, and she understood the way that a small business can grow. And she was very, very much behind us. She didn't say, this is failing, you've got to do something. She said, I think after the first year, she said, you've gone from losing thousands to only losing 100 quid. That is a big step. And then the third year to actually say, make a small profit. It was just a breakthrough moment, because it was one of those things where you think, I haven't lost money, I've actually made money. And the following year, we started making in the thousands, not in the hundreds. It was profit in the thousands. And we ploughed every bit of profit back into the stock. So the stock was getting bigger and bigger and better, because we were buying higher quality instruments. Well, you saw that when you first came here many years later, that we always looked for something different. And that's what I think one of the things that the shop did do very, very well is look for those niche instruments that set you apart from one or two other places.
Which is an ethos that we still keep doing today, I look around, we've got some weird Japanese things and 12-string down electron. That's I don't know if that's still JHS. It is. Just,
the weird and wonderfuls are what set a place apart. The mums and dads shops, you can't knock the things like Tanglewood, and you can't, and that's another company that we dealt with as well through Paul Newton. When he left JHS, he went to Tanglewood. So you cannot knock the likes of the Tanglewoods and the Encores and the vintage guitars, the general stuff that you see in lots and lots of shops, because it's good quality at a reasonable, affordable price.
Yeah, of course.
But then you get things like we used to do Guild, and you do Guild again now. You've got the reps. We do the Auden stuff. We do the
Still
Brook.
Do Brook. 20 years. 20 years.
2004 is when we started with Brook, and I've still got my 2004 Brook at home. So that was how the business started, and so it was born out of a situation where I was sort of moving on, because the company I'd worked for had given me a nice package to leave, and that passion about music, wanted to do something that I'd wanted to do since I was 14 years old. So it took me a few years to get there, but I did get there in the end.
It must have been very satisfying, using that chunk of money. It was a bit of a risk, wasn't it? Or it was quite a big risk, putting it into getting the lease of the building, getting the stock. That first year not making a loss, and that second year just making a loss, but pretty much break even. And then basically by the time you got to year 3, that idea that you'd had probably 3.5 years ago, and you'd backed yourself the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then you finally, you were right about your conclusions. It takes 3 years.
Yeah,
to get there,
it was.
But you were correct.
Yeah, it was having the courage of your convictions. Those are the things that you've got to do. And Judith and I discussed right at the very beginning of this project what I would do if it didn't work. Now, part of the terms of the agreement of leaving the company that I was with was I couldn't work in the industry for 12 months after leaving, because of the type of information I had on competitors. I couldn't go to competitors and say, I could have taken sensitive information with me. So there was myself and another co-executive that we left on the same day, and he couldn't work within the industry for 12 months, but he moved abroad and worked in the industry, carried on working in the industry. He went to Canada and worked out there. I decided that I'm going to go back to 14 years old, and I'm going to do that musician thing, but with a little bit more nous than a 14-year-old had. And I think applying that was the catalyst for me going for it. But at the back of my mind, I always knew that if I wanted to, I could fall back into engineering again a year or two later, because there'll be one or two companies out there would say, we'll happily take you back on. I used to work for a large Swiss corporation, and many years before, and they always said if you were available, we'd take you back on. But I never did, because here we are, 27 years later, and look what you're doing with it.
Yeah, it's still going. I think we have to thank you and be thankful that you did start it and keep it going.
It's a legacy I'm very proud of, and I'm also
absolutely.
very proud of the fact that the legacy is being continued by two people who've got the same sort of passion that I had 27 years ago.
Aye. 28. This video will actually be coming out on the 28th year, 28th anniversary, which will be the 7th of November.
Yeah.
7th of November, when Steve opened the shop back in 1998, obviously. So if you're watching this now on the 7th of November of 2025, today is the day. Any more questions, Jake? You got anything that you can think of? Anything that you...
I was going to ask, what was the high street like?
Yeah.
Was it, because it was a very different...
Well, yeah.
Was it pedestrianised at that point, or was it a road?
It was pedestrianised, yeah.
Okay.
It was pedestrianised, or it was just about pedestrianised. It was very different then. In fact, the only shops that are still here are Durkin's, the butcher's, and the pet shop are the only three other shops that are still under the same ownership as when we started here in 1998. We had Dewhurst the butchers, we had travel agents, we had Four Banks, as we've gone over that already. That new shop that has sadly just closed down, I think they came just after me, but they've gone now, sadly. But there was a wonderful shoe store just up the road, and another one just down here as well. There's some great clothes shops. There was Burton Tailoring. Remember Burton Tailoring? That closed just not long after we came here. But actually, you've just actually touched on a point which has a significant impact on the high street, because just at the turn of the century, there would have been the best part of 5,000 people working at the bottom of Long Street in Bimax and at Lister's, and another company, electronics company, that was on the Ewley Road as you went out to Ewley. So there were 5,000 odd people. Now we lost Lister's and Bimax almost at the same time, within a year or two of each other, which had a huge hit on the shop, and it had a huge hit on the high street in general. But we didn't get very much assistance from the then government, unfortunately. But the high street did survive, but it changed. There was very, very subtle changes. Some of the smaller shops did go, but the thing that was most noticeable were the things like Dewhurst, which was a national chain. They disappeared. One or two other national chains disappeared as well. So we did see a big change in that period. It knocked us for about 2 or 3 years.
Was it the footfall that went down?
Oh yeah, the footfall. Now, when the shop first opened, it would open at 9 o'clock and close at 5:30. The only reason it closed at 5:30 was to catch the people coming out of Lister's and Bimax who finished at 5 o'clock, so they could come and pick their CDs up. They could come and pick their tapes up. They could come in and pick the books up because they couldn't get out at lunchtime. And if they could, it was a rush to get up here and then get back again. So we always opened till 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock in the evening, for people to come and pick their bits and pieces up. But the reason we went back to 5 o'clock is because suddenly there's nobody coming in. So sort of 4:30, the town was empty.
So slightly different opening times, because obviously now we open 9:30-ish, 9:30, 10-ish, to about 5. And it's something that Jake's talked about before. Why do shops not open later? Because obviously people are coming home from work. Obviously we're open on a Saturday, but we're also closed on a Sunday and a Monday. Now, was that the same back when you started?
No. I was. The shop would be open 6 days a week.
Right.
And on Sunday I would be here doing the paperwork. So I was working 7 days a week, and that's when I was working after Jeff, my nephew, left after the first year. I worked on my own effectively for about 2 or 3 years until Colin came in on a full-time basis. We had a guitar teacher here that helped out in the shop, but he wasn't part of the shop. He was a teacher. That was, I'm trying to think of his name. It escapes me. I'll come back to that. But he moved away. He lives in West Wales now, and but he was a very, very good guitar player, and he used to teach. But he would come into the shop and help out when he had availability. Right. So yeah, it was 7 days a week basically for 2 or 3 years. I didn't have any time off at all. But that's what you had to do to keep the business going in those first few years because of the things that happened. The footfall was down, etc. After the first 2 or 3 years because of what happened. Lister's, Bimax, and the other company on the engineering company on the Ewley Road. So yeah, those were the sort of things that you did. But going back to Mondays, the only reason that we closed Mondays was a very recent thing, because when we installed the computer system that you use now, the new POS system, we were able to track how days would work out, and we discovered that Mondays consistently were very, very quiet. And that was borne out when we also talked to the guys that used to have the camera shop, which is now sadly gone. And they used to find the same thing, but they used to close on a Wednesday afternoon because it was traditional. But they tried to get the management to close on a Monday afternoon because there was no footfall, where Wednesday was quite busy, strangely. And that's the only reason that Monday is not open, because it was decided it was not worth switching the lights off and heating the place for the number of people that came in. Now, that goes back pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. So something you might want to review. I don't know. It's you could try it, because I've noticed you opened Easter Bank Holiday and it was really quite successful. And in the past, we didn't have any success on Easter Bank Holidays. So it shows how the industry and the marketplace has shifted, and it will go in peaks and troughs. So you have to follow what it's doing and try different things, which is what you've been doing, which is probably why the shop is successful at doing what it's doing, because you do shift with the times. You can't. If I was running it now, I wouldn't be doing what you're doing, because you've got a different aspect on running the shop, and you probably. My customer base is 50 and over. Your customer base, quite rightly, has got to be 50 and under, because they are the future
of the people buying guitars.
So that's why I think it's important for you to do what you're doing in the way that you're doing it, because you've got to cater for a future audience, which is the younger generation coming through, and inspire people to pick up a guitar, a ukulele, or whatever.
I was going to say as well, because we've got the workshop out behind the wall. Now, was that always there? And if it wasn't, why?
The workshop.
Did it come in?
The workshop was in fact where we used to have the teachers teaching in about like.
Is that where the internet cafe was as well?
No, the internet cafe was along this black wall here. There were 4 machines here, I think, and one in the other room. 3 or 4 machines out here, and one in the master one in the room at the back. Now, that was originally a storeroom and the teaching room. So, again, this is all to do with the internet. As the internet got bigger and people were starting to learn online, so the teachers didn't need a dedicated space here. So, Nick Ferris used to teach here, and 1 or 2 others used to teach here. And I think with the burgeoning internet community, the teaching wasn't required, and we made the decision. This would have been around about 2012, 2014, to strip out the back, put all the new construction in there for keeping the cases, the guitars, and creating then a new workshop. The workshop used to be in that corner just there.
Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, it used to be a desk in there where I used to do all the work. And because I was working on my own in those days, I could keep an eye on the shop and do
that.
And then when with the dawning of Colin coming in and having two people in the shop permanently, it meant we could have a more comprehensive workshop out there, which is where it started from. And then during COVID, of course, we put the new benches in because we ordered those benches from America and had those two benches that shipped over to us.
Was that still that? Because when I first came in, when I was 18, 19, and started working on Saturdays and learning from you and Norm and things, I remember being on that bench at the back.
Yeah.
So was that bench there, and then there was also the bench at the back?
No, that was the only bench.
That was the only bench.
Originally, when we first started, the bench was in front of that window for the light.
Okay.
But we needed more as we were making more money and put more money into stock. We needed that space
the
to
wall
put.
Space.
The wall space became very important. So, because the window took up such a lot of wall space that we blocked it all in, and with permission from the landlords, and put those boards across it, and then put that black screening on the windows. So we put the bench in there so we could watch over the shop, and it gave us more. Just gave us more room, and then we moved the benches into there where we had the old style workbench. Remember the flat bench? It was just across the back wall. And then we had the two American benches that the stand bench, the twist benches you've got now. You can position as you want. Stumat benches. Which have been a godsend. They've been brilliant. They are
really good. We got quite a few people. We've had other luthiers come in, over the last 2-3 years, and people always go, it's a really nice workspace in there, and the people ask about the benches and things. They are really good, really useful.
Oh yeah, and it's an area that I think that again, I know there are other places that have workshops, but most in the ones that I've seen anyway will do restrings, and they'll do possibly the odd clean and maybe a fret dress. But they a lot of them shy away from doing the electrics. A lot of them shy away from ripping the frets out of a fretboard and refretting. And refretting was one of my favourite jobs. I used to love fretting a guitar and then setting the guitar up. That was one of my favourite jobs. Yeah. Still is, yeah. I remember when you were away, I came in and helped you out a few months ago. There happened to be a guitar on the bench needing a fret dress, and I thought, I could do this. And I quite enjoyed doing it as well. It's good fun.
Like riding a bike, no, it's good.
It was a nice time. I still enjoy doing the engineering side. I am an engineer at heart, but probably overruled by the love of music.
Were there any bands that came in to start off with? Were you in any bands in that early period?
There was a band called.
Shop so much that,
in the first few years of setting up, I used to go to the Old Spot on a Wednesday night, and there was a band in there called the Old Spot Pickers, and they used to do acoustic guitar and a double bass, and they used to do folk evenings and that sort of thing. And through them, I met a few guys who were guitarists. They would take their acoustic guitars in, but they also played electric as well. And we got together and we said, we don't want to just do the acoustic stuff. They wanted to do rock blues. So they started a band called the Beavers, which is a rock blues band. So we started in that for a couple of years, and then that morphed into the band Good God No, which I was with for 17 years. And then I left them in 2018, retired from performing. That was the idea. And then I got asked by the usual suspects, would I dep on bass, as the bass player had got a hand injury and he was going to have an operation, carpal tunnel operation. He would be out for 6 months. Would I dep for them for 6 months? I said, yeah, it's only 6 months. Of course I'll do that. And here I am, 7 years later, still depping for them. Yeah.
I know one of the Old Spot Pickers because I've actually played with one of the Spike.
Oh yeah, no, Spike's one of the original old guys. Fabulous player, great vocalist, great lyricist, a really talented guy and an artist. unbelievable artist.
Yeah. He does live drawing in Wootton.
Yeah.
He also does something called the Resurrection Sessions.
Yeah.
Where he goes and plays with people.
Yeah. And his son Vince is a customer. He's
come in a few times.
He's banjos and guitars. Yeah, he's another good player.
Very good.
Very, very talented family all round. I think the Spikes family are. Yeah, I think his other son, who lives in Canada, is a professional musician as well. So yeah, but we've had some really quite famous people come through the shop. Probably, I mean, I've opened for Paul Young a few times, and his guitarist is Jamie Moses, who's played for Queen, Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder, Tom Jones, you name it, he's played for them. And they've been in the shop, and I've fixed their stuff a few times. So I fixed Paul's Gretsch guitar for him, and yeah, he's been in a few times. We've had the guys from Wishbone Ash in here. The guys from Pendragon have been here. Yeah, who else? We've had the Groundhogs. They came into here. They performed across the road. Yeah, we've had
Jerry Donahue.
Oh yeah, the lovely Jerry Donahue is now very ill. Sadly, he had a stroke a few years ago, but he was a great player. Thomas Blug as well, another great player, has come this way. And I'm trying to think of the guy from Wishbone Ash. His name escapes me. I'm getting old, you know. But he's been in. And Tony McPhee, who's passed away now recently, he was here with the Groundhogs. He came into the shop. He came here on the Saturday, and he was playing in the King's Head across the road. But he must have played every single guitar in the shop, and he was just such a nice guy. And then he played in the evening, and we organised digs for him. And he said, "Oh, the B&B you've organised is fantastic, a really nice place." And yeah, he was good. So yeah, he came in. Gary Potter has been in as well. He played a few guitars in here, the gypsy jazz player. So we've had quite a lot of well-known musicians come through here, and we've helped them out with servicing their guitars and their amplifiers as well. Yeah, so good days.
Is there anything that you want to mention, Steve? Is there anything that you
want
to mention for that?
I think what's important to mention is my wife Judith was a massive instigator of this shop. She was right behind it from the very, very start. She knew that I wasn't happy doing the job that I was doing. I couldn't work in the industry for 12 months anyway, so I had to find a job doing something, but it was, stacking shelves in Tesco or whatever. So she was really very, very instrumental, and she supported me because she was a special needs teacher in a local school. So without her input, this wouldn't have happened.
Wow. Well, we have Judith to thank then.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks guys. It's been an interesting chat.
Yeah, amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that was our chat with Steve for the 28th anniversary of Intersound opening. Hopefully it was informative, and it was also a bit interesting, a bit fun. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, show to your friends. And yeah, we just wanted to really show today, and sort of in this video, the history of Intersound. It wasn't started by myself. It wasn't started by Jacob. Jacob wasn't even alive. Nope. I was only 8 years old, 7 years old. So yeah, it did come from somewhere. I've taken it on in the last few years, and me and Jacob have taken it on to new places and keeping it going. And yeah, we just wanted to show the history of the shop. So thanks for coming, Steve.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for letting us know all about it.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope you guys out there carry on supporting these guys. Cheers.
See ya.